Well, good afternoon. Thank you and welcome to our Vertex Technopreneur Webinar Series, session number 5. Today, the session is about building company and building great companies. We have two very distinguished panelists and guest speakers. I will let them introduce themselves later. Perhaps before we begin, just to remind everybody that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen that you can submit your questions, and we'll be monitoring the questions. And we'll submit some of these questions to our panelists as we continue this discussion. Before we start the handover to the panelists, please be reminded this session is recorded. If you have any problem, please feel free to log in and log out again. The sessions. Perhaps it will be useful for me to just sort of to frame the discussion by starting with 3 simple slides, recapping some of the points or sharing some of the comments or observation I have about what it constitutes a great company and great leaders. Well, as my colleague have talked about it early on, what is a startup? A startup is basically a business powered by disruptive innovation created to solve a problem by delivering a new product and services to change the world under a condition of extreme uncertainties and risks. It is about a marathon, but yet it's also about a sprint to stay ahead of everybody else. And it's a business of passion, it's a business of determination and stamina. It's a business with many setbacks and resistance. An entrepreneur is a person who set up the business, acquire the necessary physical and human capital to start the business and operationalizes it, taking on the risk in the hope of the profit, and is responsible for the business of success and failure. This is also about a person. It's also about a person who takes on the risk with a vision to fulfill the need or solve the pain points. It's a person who translates the vision into a reality and by creating and building it. And it's also a person who pushes forward and inspires a team to follow. From my perspective, there are a couple of things that I think is important attributes of a great CEO and great leaders. It's a person who's driven and has a clear sense of the directions. It's a person who has able to mobilize people to get things done well. It's a person who listens well, both from employees, from customers and investors. It's a person who can connect the dots, see the big picture, communicate well, inspire people by shared purpose, and is a good leader. Is also able to build a cohesive team and impute a strong performance culture. And last but not least, a great leader leaves a lasting legacy. Another last slide, how to become a great CEO. A great CEO generally promote open environment for two-way feedback, keep your team informed, be open to new ideas. Cannot go now. It's also about building trust, connect with your teams, and it's not afraid to delegate. And delegation doesn't necessarily means no supervision. And of course, it's about set clear goals and expectations, ensuring tasks are understood and supervised and completed. And a good CEO is also about being a good mentor and then a coach and teach versus instruct, and also show confidence in your decision, keeping a positive attitude and take responsibility and have a mentor, and last but not least, understand your own motivations. I guess with this brief slides and presentation, let's dive into our Q&A questions with the panelists. Before I begin, I would like the two panelists introduce themselves and talk more about their background. So perhaps Roshni, you would like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Kilok. Thanks for having me here. It's a real honor to be here today on this chat and chatting with everyone on how to build a great company. Really happy to share the stage with Prajit as well, someone I really respect, and looking forward to hearing from both you, Kilok and Prajit as well. So a little bit about myself. I'm the Group CEO of theAsianparent. We're the #1 parenting community platform in Southeast Asia, and we aim to help parents have healthy pregnancies, raise healthy children and families. We currently reach over 30 million moms right now on our website as well as our app, and we're available in 11 different languages across 13 different countries in Asia. And we're pretty much loved by moms. We've created the world's best parenting app. We have more than 100,000 ratings on the App Store at a 4.9 star App Store rating. And so, I like to believe that I'm on the process of building a great company here, and with a lot of support from Vertex.
Perfect. Thanks, Roshni. Thanks, Keelok. Thanks for having me. Roshni, pleasure to speak with you on this panel. My name is Prajit. I'm co-founder CEO of NIUM. I actually moved to Singapore back in 2015 to actually build what was called Instagram earlier. So we are a global financial infrastructure headquartered in Singapore, active in about 40 countries. Interestingly, though we are a Singaporean headquartered company, 10% of our volumes comes from Latin America. So that's how diversified. So my day starts with a call from a colleague in Australia and ends with a colleague in San Francisco. So if you see this face with, the eyes puffed up, it's because of sleepless nights and a 2-month-old baby. Right? So we are about 400 people across the globe. Vertex led our Series A round. And I think raising money from a good investor like Vertex is always a good harmony. And since then, Vertex has been a great supporter. Interestingly, I can and be very transparent to you that out of the good CEO tick boxes, I don't tick box all the 6. I may tick box 2 or 3, right? So I'm an absolute work in progress guy. But I think I've built a great company, and I would love to talk about what mistakes I've made and what learnings I have out of that.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for your introduction. Maybe with that, let's dive into some of the prepared questions I have done. And maybe we start with ladies first, I guess, Roshni. What was your vision when you first came to starting your company called AsianParent? And what do you want your customer to remember about your company, and what legacy do you like to be left behind?
What I love about my brand name is it's very literal, right? You can't look at the AsianParent and go, hey, what is it? It's very clear. We are all about mom and baby and parents and Asia. So it's all there in the brand name. And ultimately, we exist to improve the lives of parents and children in developing and emerging markets. So we look at the -1 to 6 years age of a child. And we started first with good quality, highly relevant, localized content. And then we built a non-judgmental and supportive community to help our new moms navigate this most beautiful thing called motherhood, but also extremely daunting new world. And last year we entered into commerce so that we can ensure that moms and babies get the best quality products at the best price point. So to sum it up, what do we want our customers to remember us by? Well, we want them to remember that we exist to help make them the best versions of themselves and to improve the lives of families in emerging markets.
Well, that just looks at a fantastic goal and objective. And I guess, Prajit, I guess next question is you talked a bit about yourself starting as a remittance business, and then you build the full stack solutions, and now you are offering your solution to digital banking, and you seem to be expanding to a lot of area. I guess as a company, building a company, one of the questions is what balance between focus and doing a lot of things and a complementary business or adjacency business. How do you balance between the two?
Yeah, I think one of the very interesting learnings, and I think it was a very interesting learning I had when we were a very small company, was that the amount of things you shouldn't do should be a longer list of things than what the other things which you are doing, right? I think now we are a 5-year-old company, so the ambition grew, and we basically realized that adjacent to your businesses, there are a lot of interesting parts of the ecosystem which you can solve. So originally, to give you some history, like we started as a remittance business, and we suddenly saw enterprise payments booming purely by luck. One of the world's largest payment processors came to us and said that, hey, can you help us process payments? And we said, okay, we can do this, right? Suddenly, one of our clients came up to us and said that, hey, can you help us issue a card? And we said, oh, wow, we can do this. So I think it's all been adjacent to what we've done. So we went through a rebrand. So we were earlier called Instagram. Now we are called NIUM. NIUM actually means rules. We believe we are rewriting rules across the globe in financial services. One of the reasons we also changed the name is I was sick and tired of being called the Instagram CEO because it was Instagram. It's been so often that somebody used to come and say that, oh, you know what, I use your product so frequently. I love your product. I use it every day. And I don't know they're talking about Instagram and not Instagram. So in a way, I'm glad to be called a NIUM CEO now than Instagram CEO.
Great. Well, I guess Roshni, the same question should go to you because you also have over time expanded to different services, e-commerce and other area. And I guess the same question is also similarly, how do you stay focused while at the same time not ignoring the complementary business and what Prajit is doing, expanding it? Well, I mean, the investor like to say focus, right? So how do you balance between the two, right? How do you balance between building a company?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So I say it boils down to two philosophies. Do you follow the China philosophy or do you follow the Silicon Valley philosophy? It's literally, Beijing, Shanghai versus Silicon Valley. And in Silicon Valley, they always tell you focus, do one thing, do it really well, go the WhatsApp way, really clean, just do, communication, just do chatting. Or do you do WeChat where you're everything, right? Like you're the whole ecosystem. And I think as a company, we definitely follow more towards the China philosophy of building like a super app or building services that really helps a whole demographic. Today, it could be one thing and tomorrow it's something else. So I always tell my team that we're after the 5 C's as a company. And I'm a true blue Singaporean, right? And, as a true blue Singaporean, you grow up and your parents always tell you, you must go after the 5 C's. Condo, cash, country club, car. I can't even remember what the last one is. I think credit card or something. But we say we go after the 5 C's as well. So content, community, commerce, childcare, and conception. So that's the 5 C's for our company at the Asian Parent. And at the end of the day, it's just really about improving the state of healthcare. I think our vision is to improve the health and lives of parents and babies. And today, it could be through one method, but tomorrow it's another method.
Yeah. Well, so some of you who are watching Roshni live, I can tell you that Roshni had not changed a single bit ever since I met her. In fact, I must tell you that after our first meeting, I left the room. I told my colleague, hey, is she always so energetic? I think it's very tough to be her, They said, no, this is how she talks every day. I said, oh, really? Wow. I don't think I can do this every day. Anyway, we'll talk more about your family and how to be balanced between being a mother and being a father. Both of you have a young family, so we'll talk about that later. I guess the next question for Prajit is more about fintech industry. This is a lot of hype, a lot of talks about TransferWise, Revolut, Monzo. There's so many people to copy, and then somehow you choose not to do any of these things and then try to build your own stack and explain to me what the people are trying to do. And how do you avoid being a copycat and how do you being on your own to create something different? How do you balance between the two?
I think if you think of the concept of copycat, right? And funnily, we have money from Rocket Internet, which was a seed investor. So that's like copycat model 101, right? But if you look at copycat as a model, it has to have a large market, right? Like what you see is take an idea from the US and try to deploy it in China, or take an idea from China, deploy it in India and Indonesia. We actually looked at a lot of fragmented markets, like we looked at Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, Europe, US, etc. So we didn't actually want to copycat somewhere. What we saw is a space of our own. So, our core hypothesis is that everyone wants to be a fintech. And this is something coming true every day, right? If you look at Asia, Grab, Gojek, you don't see any more Grab press releases about the car hailing service. You say, oh, we've launched insurance, we've launched wealth management. You see GoPay, right? So everyone who has a large distribution infrastructure always talks about financial services because this is a great market, emerging. And in reality, what we are doing today is we are actually selling knives in a knife fight, right? We are providing them the financial infrastructure. So you want to issue a card, you want to collect money, you want to create a mobile app, you want to create a digital bank, use our infrastructure to do it. Because what we don't want to do is go acquire the customers one by one. Because acquiring a customer requires significant amount of money, you require a significant amount of investments and things like that. I think that's what where we see a different space to play in. So so today, if you want to build a digital bank on top of us, you can actually roll out a new bank in 4 weeks compared to like a year, which new digital banks can take. So carving out your own space also means the fact that you don't have an example to quote, right? So like, for example, a lot of people ask me in Southeast Asia or in Asia, who is your competitor? Like, who do you look up to? I said, like, the closest one I have is in the US. We don't have anyone here because of not having, not having a similar company is also a challenge, but also the fact that we are now setting paths for people to follow.
Interesting. I guess for Roshni, this is something similar but slightly different way of asking you the questions. In a way, what you're trying to do is not new in a way sector which existence, motherhood, everything else. But also sometimes what you're trying to do is very different and very innovative. And at the same time, whatever you're doing is innovative and being new. Obviously, you have not seen it before, you've not done it before. So you need to make a lot of choices and decisions every day. And how do you show confidence to your team that you know what you're talking about since you have not seen it before, right? So how do you show that confidence, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but it's quite tough when you have not seen it before. So how do you do that when you are trying to do something that nobody has seen it before, including you? So how do you do that?
So I think, convincing your team is less of the challenge. I think sometimes convincing your investors can be a bigger challenge. But when I think at the end of the day, when it comes to your team, the first time round is definitely a challenge. But the second time round, especially when they've worked with you and they know that you have good instincts and you know the domain that you're in, they believe in you. They just trust you. I think at the end of the day, when you join an early stage company, you should be joining because you believe in the product and you also believe in the CEO. If you don't believe in the CEO, then there's a huge problem, right? Because the role of the CEO, as you showed earlier on, right, is really to bring a tribe of people together and to build something cool. But at the end of the day, to charge forward and make sure that, you hold the harmony of the company. And I think at our company, a lot of people have realized that the way when I do something, first of all, a lot of times it does come with instinct. I don't know why, but I have very good instincts when it comes to this domain. And it might just be because, I've been in the industry long enough. I've researched up a lot about it. And when you've been in the industry long enough, you don't know when something hits you, because you may have learned about it years ago, but it's just been stewing in you for a long time. But don't just go with instincts. You need to make sure that you check data on every single thing. So for example, when we launched out our product line, we actually surveyed 150,000 moms before we launched our first product SKU. Our first brand name, we had a list of 150 different brand names that we wanted to call the company. And every time I would meet Vertex or anyone else, I would call the brand a different name because I would test, how does it feel like for me to say this brand name? How are people reacting to me? And then how are the users reacting to it as well? So I think if you go with a lot of data, you can definitely whittle down and you can be confident yourself. And if you're confident yourself and you drink your own Kool-Aid, it's very easy to convince those around you.
Well, that's great. By the way, one of the participants have asked a very interesting question, which I guess related, perhaps from Pauline. I see, so both of you, maybe we start Prajit first. And then one of the questions is, what was the hardest decision you had to make as a CEO?
I think the most hardest decision has been recent one. I think during COVID, right, as you can imagine, the initial onset of COVID, no one knew how things are going to shape up, right? Things are absolutely amazing. I think it was March, late March. We had no clue really how things are going to really shape up. So we took a decision that across the company we'll do a flat 20% pay cut. And I personally took a 30% pay cut. And it was how to kind of communicate this to 400 people that, hey, we had two options. Either we retrench people or we do pay cuts, but we took that option. So I think I spent like a couple of sleepless nights just going through that feeling, because the first feeling is that, hey, it's so, but I was super transparent. I told them that, hey, we have the cash, but we need to conserve the cash. It's not that we are running out of any time soon. This is our, financial model, but we don't know the impact of COVID. We've actually, for junior levels, we've got the pay cut off, right? But I think as a CEO, what I learned from that is also that being super transparent at tough times is helpful. I have a lot of colleagues who actually wrote to me either on Teams or something like that, saying that it was brave of you to take that decision, but we are glad to have a job, even though it's a 20% cut. But I think it was very challenging as a decision because, I can imagine it was a sensitive moment for all of us. No one knew how COVID is going to impact. Business was, we did not know where the business would go to. Right. We took the decision. Everyone is out of it. Junior people have got their salaries back. We actually gave them ESOP, etc. But I think mentally, I think those 1 or 2 weeks were very daunting, right? Because You call up a client, he says, don't call me anymore. Let's speak in let's speak in a couple of months. You're speaking to investors, potential investors. They said, hey, I need to worry about my existing startups. So no new investments right now. We had, and I think it's a lot of learning, right? It also taught me that when it comes to investors, always stick to investors who will hold your hand in bad times, right? And not in good times. So we had one investor who said, listen, I can't invest any more money. And 4 months later came back saying, hey, I want to invest money into you. And I said flatly, no, because you don't want people who they think that they can come back to you when the time is right.
Wow, Roshni, same question. What is the hardest decision you had to make as a CEO? I guess in the recent months, I guess.
So I would say that, there are two hard decisions. The first one is when you know that you've hired someone wrong and you have to let them go. Or if you've had someone in your company for the longest time and they've built it up with you, but you've outgrown them. And I think that as a CEO, it's very difficult, right? Because as a CEO, your fiduciary duty is to your shareholders as well as to your other employees to make sure that you can, bring in the best talent to the company and increase shareholder value. But at the same time, you can't help but be emotional as well, right? Because oftentimes you may have grown with this person. You may like this person. You might even be hanging out with this person over the weekend, but they might not be the right fit for your company anymore. And you know that no matter what you do, you've outgrown them. So how do you make that decision to say, hey, it's time to cut off the purse strings. It's time to say, handshake and say, thank you for taking us to where we are today. But the path has come where we should be going on separate paths. And I think that's a very hard decision that every CEO has to make at some point in their company. I think the other hard decision is also learning how to say no to your board. At the end of the day, I think especially here in Asia and for younger entrepreneurs, we sometimes may look at the board as your mommy daddy, right? Or like, oh no, like these are your big boss and stuff like that. And I think this is like the early younger CEOs, right? But after you've had a little bit more experience, you realize that your board is there to give you a vantage viewpoint, because you might sometimes have a tunnel vision because you're just constantly on the treadmill and you're running and you're doing things right now that you might not be able to look at things from a bird's eye view. But it means that you take their advice and you listen to them, but the decision has to be yours as a CEO. You know this business better than anyone knows this business. You know your team, you know your capabilities. So if you don't think it's a good idea, you need to have the courage to say no. Or if you think something is really, really great, then you also need to have the courage to tell your board, trust me. You invested in us because you trust me. Give me that trust. I know what I'm doing.
Oh, great. That is actually great pointers, But I must say that my dealing with you, he'll never say yes to me most of the time, so it's okay. So at least now I feel that you say no to everybody. So I think that I feel very good today. No, anyway, I guess one of the very important questions, I used to be an entrepreneur, I've done this before. One of the things that maybe just explain, in terms of organization as a startup, when your company is small, 10, 5, 10 people, you tend to know everybody is doing what. You can set a clear direction, what I call line of sight management, right? So you have 10 people, you see where they are. Within your line of sight, you can see everybody. So their directions are very clear. They're always in sync. But then as your company scale, you have to go towards that, what I call cascaded management, right? You hire a bunch of manager who hire a bunch of manager who manage a bunch of executive, right? So then you start having cascaded organization over time as you grow bigger, which both of you, I think now organizes a couple of 100 people. So as your company scale from line of sight management to a cascaded management, how do you make sure, maybe Prajit, start with you first, how do you make sure that everybody's going the right direction? Besides all the mission statement, which everybody knows, so right, how do you make sure this happens? Because now no longer you're seeing everybody going the same direction. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing where we actually started last Friday of the month, all hands on tech. So we actually give an update of what's the state of the business, what clients we've won, where are we going, what are the new things, what are the things to expect, etc. We started with anonymous questions. Earlier, I used to ask questions and there was no questions. Suddenly there was Slido and there are like 50 questions. So I think anonymous questions, a lot of people feel more comfortable, especially in this part of the world, to ask those questions. And there will be questions around direction, strategy. Somebody say, hey, are we, is this a new thing we are trying to do, etc. But I also feel that it's very important for the CEO to be in touch with top talent. So even though somebody would be 3 level lines below in terms of reporting, but he's one of the top talents in the company, I would have a regular touch. Like I would reach out to them on Teams. I'll just call them offhand, and generally try to understand what's happening, etc., and try to make myself more approachable, because in the end, top-down approach works a lot, but there's a lot of things at the mid-level which you can actually use, synthesize, and really create and improve at the top, right? So I think being in touch with your, say, top 40, top 50 employees. I still remember when this was run out of my house. Now we have 400 people scattered in 12 different countries, different time zones, but you need to be able to speak to your top talent, right? As you know, I keep telling people that however far spread you are, your top talent should know, one, you're available, and second, they should know what you're building and what's your strategy, and they should feel connected to you. Otherwise, they are the guys who will really lift the truck and drive it with you, right? So you can't do it alone. So I think these are 2 points, like make it as transparent as possible. Let people ask you as many questions as you can. And second is keep as close to top talent as possible. There is no more important thing for you to do.
What about Roshni? How do you make sure that everybody goes the same direction now that your organization has grown so big?
Yeah, so I think it's all about communication. Even when you think you communicate, still communicate. So there's no such thing as over communication. And as a company, I think it's actually improved now because of COVID-19 than before, because now everyone's virtual, right? So I feel as close to an employee in, let's say, India, or as close as an employee in Thailand versus before, where I was mostly living in Jakarta before. So I would only really speak to the Jakarta, Indonesia team and the Singapore team, but I wouldn't necessarily communicate with all the employees across all the markets. And now it's free for all because all of us are working from home. I think the other thing besides communication is really about making sure that you do cultural surveys. And I completely agree with Prajit that it's all about anonymity. So you give people a chance to really score you and tell you, how are you doing? So make sure that you have an internal net promoter score. Are your teams happy or are they not? Are they going to recommend you as an organization to their friends, or are they not? It's very easy for you to just to do that as dipstick, to say, hey, morale is a little bit down right now. Now there's a problem in this market. Now let's zoom in and over communicate in this market. So I would say doing regular surveys with your team.
Sounds good. Well, I guess, Prajit, you have once somebody asked you this, I have a question from one participants. I guess this question also applies to Roshni. One of the participants earlier asked this question: what inspires you every day?
Right.
Why do you come to work every day, I guess? Yeah.
I think it's a super exciting thing, right? I think when I take a train, right, pre-COVID, when I took a train to come back to office, I'll always look around people. I generally don't listen to music. It's my time where I'm kind of pumping myself in. And I look at people who are going to a corporate job and everyone's just, it's an activity to go to, right? Well, I was super charged because I think the mission we have to basically drive financial inclusion or put an app in front of a person who never had access to financial services, etc., is so broad, right? It always brings smile to my face. And I think when you have a mission which is, one, super exciting, super broad, I haven't had a single day. I've been doing this now 5 years, right? And you would see that 5-year founders, basically the motivation comes down, right? They're finding, hey, what's my exit, right? My actual motivation is so high, right? There hasn't been a single day where I get up and say that, oh man, I have to pick up this call at 7 or things like that. I just really love what I do. I work with some really brilliant, passionate people. Some of the smartest people are not even senior leaders in the company. And, working with them, talking to them, bullshitting with them. I really enjoy my job, right? And I enjoy some of the title perks as well, where I can just call somebody on Teams and they'll drop what they're doing and pick up my call and say, hey, is something wrong? I'll say, no, I just wanted to talk to you, right? So I think that motivation, I hate working from home because I rub off other people's energy, right? Like I walk into the office, I see people bubbling, talking, I will jump into, what I miss about, working from home is the fact that I can't walk into a meeting room and listen to a conversation and just be like an impediment to what they're discussing, saying that, hey, what's the meeting all about, right? I wish Zoom had a feature where I could figure out, or Teams had a feature where I can figure out which calls are happening in the company right now and just join a call, right? So, and it always brings smile because the mission is so big. I work with so much passionate people. I know there are some people who work harder, longer hours. Some people who hate me for what I am, but love me what I'm building. It's really enjoyment, right? I just can't think of doing a better thing to do.
Okay, well, I guess same question should go to Roshni to what inspires you every day to come to work, I guess.
Really at the end of the day, I think for me, it's a very meaningful job that we're doing. I think what I'm trying to prove is that you can build a very, very highly profitable business and still do good for the world. I really believe that in the mission of our company, children are the world's most valuable resource and it's best hope for the future. So, why are we all doing what we're doing? Most of the time it's because we want to make the world a better place, right? And that's what I hope drives a lot of us intrinsically as a human being. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that's what motivates me. And I believe that's what motivates everyone else who comes and joins us as well as an organization.
Oh, great. Well, there's a lot of questions, so I'm trying to prioritize out some of the questions. So because many of the questions are quite very good questions, so I will pose to you as we go. I guess then maybe we talk about it, chat a bit before we start this session about both of you, because I know both of you well. Both of you have very young family. Both of you have just Prajit especially just have another new kid. I think Roshni, your daughter is about 4 years old. And I heard that she's going to start her own business soon. So that's a fantastic idea.
You have a VC ready to fund your daughter's business.
We're ready to fund the 4 years old. Anyway, start early, right? So nothing wrong with that. So I think one of the questions is how do you balance? I think maybe start with Prajit again. How do you balance between a young family and work? And then since your work is 24/7, starting from 7, and then especially you have investors who will call you at any hour. How do you balance between these two, and then at the same time giving time to your young family?
Yeah, I think so. I have 2 under 2, by the way. So I have a 21-year-old and a 2-month-old, right? So 2 under 2 means basically trouble, right? I think I have 2 under 2 and a 5-year-old child, which is NIUM. So interesting. But I think the key thing is to be able to compartmentalize your life, right? I keep telling a lot of, I'm approached every month by 5 or 10 founders saying, I want to start something. And I think I convinced 2 or 3 people not to start up because the reason why it's not everyone's cup of tea. Being a CEO, being a founder is very lonely. You need to basically spend so much time smiling and pumping up everybody while internally, there are so many things which can go wrong. So I think it's a very, very lonely journey. But the only way to survive is to compartmentalize your life, right? So when I work, I work. When I'm with my family, I'm basically trying to gradually cut off all connections, just really focus on family. Like it could be, I think one positive I had from working from home is that my elder daughter now basically thinks her father is useless guy, sits in front of a computer talking to people, doesn't know what she does. But she'll come in right now and I can actually say that, okay, next 1 hour, I'm going to take her down, take her to the pool, spend some time with her, etc. So if you can compartmentalize your lives, like really saying that, okay, this is my family time and I'm not going to let work bother me, right? It could be that one specific hour and you're good, right? If you try to mix everything together, it's not, right? I absolutely miss travel because travel was a time where you charge yourself, right? Because, the question is all about the family, the business, but what about us, right? We are human beings, right? I miss travel, right? On a long flight to San Francisco, I could actually recharge myself. I totally miss that. So I think these are elements we basically really miss. And when you think about that, I think if you compartmentalize, you say that this is my time, this is family time, this is business time, then things get much better.
Oh, Roshni, I guess the same question go to you. Maybe.
Total opposite answer from Prajit. I say bring it on.
Which is okay.
So I say there's no such thing as compartmentalizing your life and your time. For me, there's no difference. I remember, early days, you would bring my daughter for board meetings as well. So, Juha, Carmen, every one of them. Thank God for you guys. You all bless your souls because you all are parents. So it was no problem actually bringing my kid and saying, hey, Carmen, can you hold my baby? Juha, can you hold my baby? I really need to get this out. So I think that there's no such thing as, boundaries. At the end of the day, I work 7 days a week. My daughter is very much part of some of the conference calls I do. We do play dates every weekend with other founders. So every Saturday, I have a play date with another founder in Singapore, and it's a lot of fun because you get to basically talk shop, talk business, even sometimes gossip, and at the same time, your kids are playing with each other. You know, and I think it's about really embracing it. I think if you're a founder, the fact is that you're committed to really giving this your all. This is my world. And, you know, my husband always teases me, and he always says that, you know, my number one love is not my family. It's really my business. And I always tell him, I said, but the business is my first baby. So I don't believe in having this whole, you know, work-life balance kind of thing. Work is life, life is work. And you just figure out how to make it work for you. So, but that said, you know, every day for 2 hours, it is almost impossible for anyone to get in touch with me, because that's the 2 hours that I really commit to my daughter, to put her to sleep, to shower her, etc. But besides those 2 hours, I'm available 24/7.
Actually, there's a big, if there are any VCs there, there's a big check coming over towards you.
but I must tell you that being a founder is tough. And being a lady founder is even harder, because you have to balance between
more harder.
I think it's a very difficult thing to be doing both roles. In fact, you know, just to tell you one story about Roshni and us. Well, 4 years ago, when we were doing a very tough financing round, when she was not, she was still trying to, you know, figure out her business model, everything else. And we were talking a very tough financing round. And then that she was just about 1 week due from delivery, and then we were talking about this in our room. And then, as you can imagine, you know, VC guys are stupid, including me. We just keep asking her very tough questions, and then even though, you know, we know that she's anytime it's due, we're just talking and talking about it. At the end of it, she exhausted. She left the room, so we talk about it. She, I think it's okay. Let's try to help her and support her. And then 1 week later, suddenly she come and say, let's have a follow-up meeting with Roshni to discuss, finalize the term. Then I asked her, isn't she bedridden? She said, yeah, she wanted to take the call on the bed with us. I said, are you kidding me? Let her deliver the baby first. She said, no, she wants to have a call now. Okay, fine. So we were having a call while she's waiting to be delivered, and then talking to us about the financial terms and negotiating a few things. I say, it's okay, it doesn't matter, give her anything. Let's not negotiate this kind of stuff anymore. So that's what she is. So I believe you have known between work and life balance. I think that's a good example of you. So I always remember, by the way, when I told one of our investors about this story, and I thought that he thought it would be a good fun, but he said, well, you guys, Vertex are really a slave driver. So that was his. But we didn't do this intentionally. No, there's a question for me from Darius. I guess Darius, by the way, said something very nice to you, Prajit. They say they are a fan of Instagram. So I don't think you paid Darius for this marketing message. But anyway, I will repeat this one to you. But Darius asked a question, actually it's for me. He said, you know, for your best founder, how often do you disagree with, how often do they disagree with you? Any pattern there? So I guess this is actually an excellent point to share. I call the tree philosophy that I always tell founders. You know, I don't join a lot of boards. I usually join some of the boards. So some of the boards I join, I will sit in the meeting and listen to the founder and some of the new investors talking about the company. And then so usually some point in time I will tell the founder there's 3 rules you must always remember. Dealing with me or VC. So of course the founder usually, if they're young, they heard about my background and everything, they started taking out notepad, waiting to write down everything I say, right? So I've said first rule, remember, first rule, venture capitalist, VC, every one of them, including me, are stupid. So they what are you talking about? So I explained. If truly whatever you're doing, you know, as a founder is truly disruptive and innovative, obviously none of us have seen it before. So we are equally stupid and equally dumb. So we are guessing just like you are guessing too. So first rule, you must know that we are also guessing. We are also trying to figure out what is the right answer. So everybody is stupid. Everybody is stupid. So don't assume that whatever we say, we are smarter than you, because we obviously have not seen it before too. So of course, by then the founder is also disappointed. They say, oh crap. I thought Gila would give me all the answers, but now he said that he's stupid. So then I said, second very important rule, as a founder, even those VCs are stupid, are dumb, no? But they have seen more things than you. they have seen a lot more things than you. They have seen a lot more founder. They have seen a lot more crazy thing. They have raised a lot more money than you have. And they make a lot more mistakes than you have. So therefore, the second rule is that they have seen a lot more things than you have. So 50% of the time they are right, 50% of the time they are wrong. So this is the second rule. So they may be stupid, but they have seen a lot more things. 50% times they are right, or 50% they are wrong. So the third most important rule, which is the final rule, you as a founder, you must listen carefully. And it is your job to figure out which is the 50% that is right and which is the 50% is wrong. So to answer Daryl's questions, actually, I think for me, especially so a lot of my colleagues, we all agree that it's okay for founders to disagree with us. I think we're all on the same team. We're trying to solve the problem. So long as we share what we think is the right answers, and then you share what is the reason why you think is the wrong answer, so be it. And then ultimately, we're all trying to get the same thing, get to the same end point. And it's not as if that it's as if we are trying to rob a bank or anything. Everybody's trying to build the right company and the culture. So for us, it's okay to disagree, but you have to disagree with the reason, right? I mean, you cannot disagree because
maybe Kilok, let me kind of give an answer to the story, right? Like I can give you a real example, which is pretty recent. Giving an example, like we wanted to apply for a digital bank. I think I was in my founder's ego, where I said, oh, we should apply for a digital bank, right? And Vertex was like sort of saying, hey, maybe that's not a great idea. And we disagreed, and they had points, we had points, etc., etc. But finally, right, in all that disagreement, I think I was coaxed and cajoled, saying we shouldn't do this. But now when I think of it 12 months later, I think probably last year's best decision of our year was the fact that we didn't apply for a digital bank, right? Now, at that point of time, I was like, hey, you guys are not supporting us. You're not. But now when I think of it, it's like there is, I think disagreement creates great conversations, right? Even when you hire people, you don't want to hire yes men. You want people who would basically disagree with you, pick up a challenge, etc. So I think if an investor does it and you listen to that point and you can have a good conversation, it's not like where you keep all your pedestals aside and everyone's having like a conversation why and etc. I think disagreements create harmony, right? Like I would like to say it in that fashion.
I mean, it's great. I mean, Prajit, I must give credit to you. After we spoke about it, you express your point strongly, we express our point strongly, we agree or disagree, and we move on. And of course, you didn't talk to us for almost 5 weeks, but which is fine, which is unusual for us. You talk to us almost every other week. So I told my colleague, Prajit is angry, so just leave it alone. He will get over it.
I was angry, but
I must admit that a couple of weeks later, you actually send me a message and tell me exactly what you say. I can say this is a man, a good leader, because he admitted it. I mean, move on. That's not argue anymore.
Correct. And I think I also sent you a message saying thank you. If it was not you, I would be doing this, and I would be like tearing whatever small hair I have left on my head, saying that, oh, why did we do this? So it's a learning.
Yeah, I think actually there's actually a question from Olivia, which is about ESOP scheme.
Right.
She wants to know, we talk about motivating people using ESOP and everything else, So I guess maybe we'll let Prajit rest for a moment. We ask Roshni first. How attractive do you think ESOP scheme today to employees and to startup companies, especially those people who are junior position?
Yeah, so I think if you looked at ESOP maybe 10 years ago, most people didn't understand it and they didn't see the value of ESOP. Today, I think you've seen a lot of successful people, especially, from the Alibaba world, etc. It's not just Jack Ma who made a lot of money, right? It's a lot of people in the second layer, third layer that's made a lot of money and have launched funds, have launched new businesses, and have become real multimillionaires because of it. And so I think that today people are much more motivated by ESOP than they were 10 years ago. Now, I think in Singapore, just generally speaking, I think we grow up a little bit more risk averse, right? It's just in our DNA to be a little more risk averse. So it's like, give me cash in my hand versus two birds in the bushes. And so I think that makes Singaporeans generally lean towards wanting to have a little bit more cash than ESOP. But if I look at other markets and if you really explain to them the potential of ESOP and how this can really change their life, I often find that people would prefer to take a ESOP package if they believe in the company, and if the company is early stage enough that there is a potential for this to have good up rounds. I think the big problem is that when it's a slightly later stage company, how much money can you really make from the ESOP unless your strike price is super low? So I think a lot of it is about the terms and the nuances of your ESOP. But I do see that across Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, I'm starting to see much more employees asking me directly, and in India for ESOP, but I'm not seeing that in Singapore.
How about you, Prajit? How package ESOP?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think we have a fantastic ESOP package. All employees right now have ESOP. When we did the pay cut, so if your salary was reduced by 10,000, you actually got $20,000 worth of ESOP. One of the reasons I believe our ESOPs are attractive is we are actually doing a first secondary, where we are actually creating a market for the ESOPs. So some of our colleagues are going to make anywhere from $30,000 to $500,000. You know, some of them who have been with us for a long time. One of the issues also on ESOP has been the fact that there have not been a lot of companies, especially in this part of the world, who have done secondaries, right? So people don't know the value, right? Oh, I see this stock, I log into a portal and say, oh, this is worth $100,000, but it's not cash. But once you do a secondary, once they get cash in hand, then you tend to believe. ESOP, I agree with Roshni, is very different every country. The most junior role in US will ask me for ESOP. Senior roles in Singapore, some parts of Asia, they'll say, no, I prefer cash, right? If you join at a leadership level, everyone takes a pay cut at senior level. Like that's guys who report into me. No one's hired at their previous salary. Everyone takes 50 to 60% pay cuts, but they're given a significant amount of ESOP. At extremely senior levels, I think giving them a high base salary doesn't make sense at all. You join for the vision, the mission, and thinking that this can be 10x of what it can be, right? And at the end of the entrepreneur journey, right, which is an IPO, I should not be the only one laughing away to the banks. It should be everyone together. Otherwise, you know, people will feel that, oh, Prajit built only his legacy, right? The idea is that, oh, we were part of DM, a journey which we spent 10 years, and today all of us can buy a house and things like that, right? Like I'm super excited because when we do the secondary, some of our real junior most people will make $40,000-$50,000, which is a few X's of their annual salary, right? And that's the exciting part, you know, that what really pushes me, saying that, and more and more I'm requesting founders in Southeast Asia to do more secondaries, because there are not many realities of that, right? Like decent sized company, $500-600 million, that doesn't count anything. You know, create secondaries for your employees, even if it's at discount, even it's only $10,000-15,000, because then they start believing that, oh, I have $15,000 cash and I have another $60,000-70,000 in the kitty, and the company is growing fast. So hey, you know what? I can actually give a deposit for an HDB in Singapore a few years later. So I think that's an important thing to create.
Yeah. Well, we actually have a very good question from one of the participants called Ken Seng here. He asked actually for both of you. Maybe I'll start with Roshni first. The question is, was there a moment in the company's growth where you thought this might not work out? And how did you overcome that doubt? Again, the doubts or the strategy?
So I always laugh and say that entrepreneurs sleep just like babies. We wake up every 3 hours crying. Baby sleep through the night, you don't have children. So I would say that, you know, it's a tough journey, right? And every company is going to have its highs and lows and ebbs and downs. And for myself, you know, I started the company 10 years ago, and this was and I was living in New York at that point. So I was living on Wall Street, and this was the subprime crisis. So I always say economic crises are the best time to start your company, because you have so little to lose, but so much to gain if things go right. We also survived the SARS crisis, and we've survived so many ups and downs, and it's tough, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's about being honest with your employees and letting them know that, hey, you're going through a tough time, to talk to your board and let them know way in advance that you're running out of money, or that things are gonna start getting ugly if you already have investors. For myself, there was one point where I didn't have investors yet. Vertex was my Series A investor, so thank you for believing in me. But Vertex invested in us 5 years ago. So for the first 5 years, I didn't really have investors. And, so I remember that there was this point in time where we were making a lot of money as a company, but then because our first business model was in media and advertising, we had a long accounts receivables because advertisers don't pay you on time. They sometimes may pay you 6 months late, 9 months late. There are some FMCGs that might even pay you 1 year late. So on paper, you're profitable, but actually you don't have cash. And I remember that, I was like going, how do I make sure I can pay my employee's salary? What do I do? And, I don't have very well-to-do parents, and I didn't have like a lot of safety nets. But I did have these 2 diamond bangles that my grandmother had given me when I turned 21. And that was my first and only time that I walked to a pawn shop and I pawned my diamonds. And I said that, it doesn't matter. I better, just make sure I have whatever cash on hand so that I can pay my people, because that's the honorable thing for me to do. Because I know that they're struggling and they need to make sure that they have their monthly paycheck. And I started calling up the clients myself and saying, you need to pay me, man. Otherwise, I'm going to get a loan shark and put a pig head outside your door, okay? So, owe money, pay money. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about just being transparent and knowing that it falls on you. And it is really important for you as a CEO to pick yourself up. You have no time to be upset and emotional about things. You need to get shit done.
Yeah. Wow, Prajit, same question.
Yeah, I think as part of our journey, we've had a lot of moments. Like, in fact, when Vertex gave us a Series A check, I still remember that we were not going to make Feb payroll. I actually put money from my own bank account to ensure everybody got payroll, and Vertex's first check was middle of March, right? But I think those moments only make you stronger, right? I think I've never had a moment where I've said that, shit, what have I got myself into? Right? I've had moments like, oh my God, what is happening right now? So I think one of the interesting moments was, I think 1 year in, we were doing 10,000 transactions a month, and we got a client which wanted to do 100,000 transactions in a single day, right? We were a small company, 30, 40 of us at that time. Everyone was awake because we never knew that scale, right? Oh, is everything working fine? And it was probably one of the most prestigious cab hailing giant, right? Global listed. Can't say anything more. I guess I gave enough clues. And but the fact of it was that we did not know whether this will work, right? And I was like biting on my fingers. I don't think I had nails. Forget about me. I don't think I had fingers left, because you're so scared, right? Such a prestigious brand. Will you mess it up? Will you be there? So, I was like, I couldn't sleep, right? I was looking at every transaction. It's going. I think 7:30 a.m. when all the transactions had gone. And we got on a call saying, is everything all right? And everyone like very zombily said, yeah, now we are going to go to sleep and don't call us for the next few hours. We're sleeping, right? So I think this actually pumps you up as well, right? Moments like this, I've always seen that when the shit is about to hit the roof, that's when teamwork comes in. That's when people rally together. That's when, I was just telling, I was part of a founders conference which Bain had organized. And I said that, I have hired a lot of senior people. I've hired a lot of aggressive junior people. And I sit now behind and see the symphony of them fighting with each other. It's fun.
Well, I guess both of you actually operate across many jurisdictions. Many languages, many culture, everything else. And I think we also sort of talk about company culture, the philosophy, everything else. But given they're so different, although English is a common language, but culture, everything else is different. How do you supervise this effectively, especially in upturns and downturns? How do you do this? I mean, maybe Roshni, I guess ladies first. How do you do this? You are operating what? Indonesia, India, Middle East, Singapore, Philippines, I believe. Right? So they're so different. I mean, so different in many areas. How do you make sure that you can operate effectively and then supervise effectively at the same time, keeping your company culture? So how do you do this?
I think the most important thing is to listen. So when you go into a new market, don't go in thinking that you know everything. It's so important to respect your local team. I love hiring local. I do think that sometimes you might need a couple of expats just to be able to make sure that everyone is moving around in sync according to the different countries and where the company wants to go. But at the end of the day, I believe in local management. I believe in local employees, and I believe that you have to treat people as equal and non-judgmental. So the most important thing for me to do is to actually go and spend a lot of time in each of these markets. I remember when I opened up India, and this was after Vertex invested in me, right? So I remember, and in fact, yourself, Kilok, and you're like, okay, so which country next? Singapore got no babies, right? Like, if you want to build a big business, which country are you going after? And I said, okay, which are the 2 countries in Asia outside of China, because I don't speak a word of Chinese, that has a lot of babies? Wow, it has to be India or Indonesia. And I decided, okay, let's go to India. And, even though I'm of Indian heritage, but because I'm a 3rd generation Singaporean, I have never grown up in India. I don't speak any Indian languages. So I remember Vertex gave me the check. And the first thing I did is I went home to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm moving to India. And they're like, you're going to India? And I was like, yeah, that's where all the babies are. and they're like, okay, which part of India? And I said, I don't know, because I had only been to India once in my life. And so I took a plane and I decided, hey, let's go to Bangalore first, because Bangalore's where all the tech startups are. And then I said, the second thing was, let's go to Delhi, because that's like the capital. And then let's go and, to Mumbai and see where the media business is and Bollywood. And so it was like being a tourist, but just basically having the hustle and saying, hey, I'm going to go into this market. So I took my 1 suitcase. I lived there for 6 months. And then I decided to set up the office in Mumbai, and mostly because, as a woman, I felt a little more safer having a business in Mumbai. But it was really about, sitting down with your team, and I felt super Indian, I was like, wow, I was like a super local. Everyone, the only problem is I still didn't learn a word of Hindi, but otherwise you would have thought I was from India.
Roshni, I must tell you, I thought I remember when we raised money from you, I thought you said you speak multiple Indian languages. I thought I remember you say that to us. Well, now that we know this we had to go back and look at the agreement, whether that was in the disclosure. You don't speak a single Indian language. So that's a big misrepresentation. Now, Prajit, what are you? What is your thoughts about how do you manage across jurisdictions and all this culture and keeping a culture alive?
I think one thing which Roshni said is that local team, local management is super helpful, right? So what is very important is to understand the local culture, etc., and kind of partake in it. One of my biggest challenges is also the fact that a lot of this part of the world, right, people don't like to be direct or confrontational. And you know me, I'm confrontational, right? So my general perspective is that I would I was asked recently that, hey, how do you hire great professionals, right? Like, what's your mantra to hire great professionals? Is I actually, if I'm hiring somebody who reports to me, I'll say something really stupid in the interview, really stupid. And I'll wait to see whether he counters me or he or she passes that question or, things like that. So if you hire great leaders who can kind of also disseminate great values and orientation, etc., right? I strongly think that as a company, we've gone through cultural change. We were at one time adrenaline fueled, very focused on delivery, etc. Now we are extremely people focused. We get people together. We have moved to a OKR, which is a objective key result mechanism, where everybody, from somebody who's filling a form to data entry to somebody picking a call to me, we all work on the same objectives. And I think all of that has really helped, get people together. But having said all of this, as a leader, you have to be communicative, right? Which I personally believe. I listen. I'm a Jekyll and a Hyde, right? I have a democratic part of me, right? And then I have a non-democratic part of me, right? So I want people to believe that 80% of it is democratic and 20% is autocratic, which is actually true as well. So I'm a good listener, but I still take my own decision. But I'm fully accessible. You can WhatsApp me, you can Teams me, you can things like that. I will reach out randomly to people. And that's one of the things which I miss, traveling to an office, just saying, hey, what do you do? Right? First he gets stunned, like, who is this guy? Why? Like, let me do my job, until somebody nudges him and says that, hey, that guy is the founder. So that, so things like that I absolutely miss. But talking to people, being approachable, every time I sign off our monthly hands-on, I have apologized. I actually said something really stupid 3 months back on our all hands on deck. The next time I actually apologized to people saying that, hey, I shouldn't have said that. I was out of line. People wrote back to me saying that we've never seen somebody apologize to such a wide spectrum. It was very nice of you. But being open, transparent, communicative, listening is very important. But my also thing is that we need to break our culture shackle, right? Like people need to open up, right? Like tell me what you want. Don't spend time on a 30-minute Zoom conversation when the actual conversation is 2 minutes, right? Tell me what you want, right? So my push is always be direct, be open, be communicative, but don't waste my time, right? I have 24 hours in a day. I want some time for myself. So don't book a 30-minute call and do a 2-minute conversation. So being direct helps, right? And automatically I'm hoping that I'll create a more direct culture where people, tell people that don't waste your time, focus on this, etc. So being direct, communicative, but it's a work in progress thing. I don't think any company has solved it in reality. Because it's all companies, even the large ones, are very work in progress on these elements, especially managing cultures, the different part of cultures, etc.
I guess we have about perhaps 5 more minutes. A couple of questions about investors. I guess there's a very good question that posted here. The question goes something like this: different investors have different relationship with CEO. Would you prefer investor who are more hands-on versus a more passive investor? And what is the pros and cons of different type of investor, which both of you have worked with many different type of investors. And so perhaps maybe I will start Roshni first. What is the different form of investor that you like, and is there any preference on particular type of investors that you like?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of investors on our cap table. So it was very interesting, like, right, my pre-2015 days, so pre-Vertex, and then my post-Vertex. And that's how I can look at my life, right? So so post-Vertex, we've brought in so we have Vertex, so I think we have around 9 or 10 professional VCs as well as corporate venture capitalist companies on our cap tables. And, board meetings can get very long, as well as a lot of different people to update, and everyone has their own interests, right? Some of them are strategic, some of them, are looking for 10x, some of them are looking for 1000x. So really the main thing is that different investors have different theses. I think the most important thing as a CEO is to understand why have they invested in you, and to make sure that you understand what is their agenda. And the moment that you understand their agenda, then you can also manage that relationship. So for example, if someone is pure financial investor, then it's really important that they can make that kind of return that they're expecting. So what is the IRR that they're expecting from you? And how long is their fund life? What kind of exit must they show? And then make sure that you can give them what they need. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what you're trying to do as a CEO, but you're also trying to make sure that others can achieve their goals and their OKRs as well. So I think the relationship with your investors, it would really depend on the different type of investors you have. But it's very, very important for CEOs to recognize that investors invest for many reasons, and understand what is the reason that that investor has invested in you.
Wow, Prajit, what about you? Any preference of particular type of investors?
I think Roshni gave a very correct answer. I may give a very incorrect answer. But I think like the relationship with investor is like a marriage, right? You're going to have great days, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days.
With a settled divorce date, though.
And unfortunately, a lot of people, and this is the feedback I'll give a lot of first-time founders who are raising money. I'll say always raise money from people whom you can call and say that the shit has hit the roof. That's and right. Not from people where you need to kind of put up a facade that everything is great, right? So always, so it's like a marriage. There'll be really bad days. There'll be disputes, disagreements, and you will walk away angrily. But in the end, you need to come back together and kind of solve things together, right? I think always go for an investor. So as you're aware, right, multiple times we've raised money. We've actually asked for investor feedback. I've got on to call with other founders and said that, hey, what do you think? And my question will always be that, do they help you when things are rough, right? So that's, do not raise money from spreadsheet warriors, right? And they are the painful ones. they are the time Draculas who will call you and say, oh, you've done this. Can you create a new model which will give me a new understanding of how your burn is going to be? Don't raise money from them, right? Like as we've grown in the business, I'm communicative. I have a WhatsApp group with all our investors. I keep updating what's happening, etc. If I get questions which are about creating spreadsheets, I don't respond to those questions anymore. It's just not worth the time, right? And I also think that what sometimes investors forget, it could be, is the fact that they are in the journey with us, right? You're allowed to ask me questions. I will answer the questions, but you need to help me, right? You have not invested in me so that tomorrow, you can laugh away with the banks. It's a journey. You need to participate in my tough decisions. You need to help me out, right? So I think last year somewhere I had a very animated board call, and I made this comment saying that, hey, I can make 500 different spreadsheets, but unless each one of you help me out, I can't really build a company, right? And the reason you invested money in us is for this to become big, but you need to help me, right? Creating 500 spreadsheets is only wasting my time and my finance team's time. And funnily, one of the investors made an introduction, and possibly it will become our largest customer, right? So not bad, right? So things which you learn, right? So, always be scared of the spreadsheet warrior, create this model, create that model. Always communicate or over communicate with investors, but always be like, I know that a bunch of our board members, I can call them at midnight and say that I need your help, and they will listen to me, right? I think that's very important to have, because if you're scared, right, and you make a decision about fear, like, we should be fearless. That's the core mantra of being a CEO of a startup. But if you have a fear that, oh, if I call and he'll first admonish you, disrespect you, then that's dead. It's not going to work out.
That's great. That is a great answer. Well, I would love to continue talking to both of you for a while. Of course, we talk regularly, but not on these topics, I guess. But I think we have, I think we pretty much run out of time. Sorry that many of you have posted very good questions. We are not able to, answer many of the questions. But nevertheless, we will try to see. Hopefully, some of my colleagues in the future will answer most of the questions. So we will come to the end of the session now. Please be reminded that we have a next session, which is our session number 6, which is coming up next week, is a continuation of the previous session about the term sheet and legal 101, which both of the lawyers have investment professional have covered. This session will be focusing about some of the M&A, some of the terms that you should be aware of as a founder, that you should be careful of, dealing with investors like us. And please do sign up for it. I think you're going to learn a lot of very interesting. And also this session, I believe there was previously a lot of good questions that was posted that they did not address it. So they will attempt to address some of these questions at the beginning of sessions. So anyway, with that, thank you very much, Roshni and Prajit, for joining us today. And thank you for sharing many of your views and very interesting stories. And I thank you, most of you, for participating in this webinar. And I hope to hear from you soon. And thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, Hilok. Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roshni. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.